Hello, everybody. My name is Sylvain Rochon. I am the Paradise Engineer, and I'm here with another article I just wrote. And this one is going to be published in a new magazine that focuses on how AI interacts with human beings, how artificial intelligence can enhance us being us. And in that vein, in that mentality, I write a lot about interactions between human beings and machines and artificial intelligence. And this article, this topic is not any different. I want to talk about how artificial intelligences have emotions. Now, to do this, I have to describe what are emotions, because a lot of people think emotions are kind of this mystical thing that we have that we don't really understand. And in fact, we understand quite a bit about them and how they work. It is a mechanism inside the brain that uses actually several parts of the brain, and it drives us to certain types of actions and to, from our interpretation, in certain feelings. Now, here's the I really love this definition from the American Museum of Natural History. It's very long because it's complete. I really like it. And it says your brain gets information from two different sources. Okay, your senses tell you what's going on in the outside world, while your emotions exist inside your body to tell you what these events and circumstances mean to you. Just as hunger motivates you to find food, emotions motivate you to take care of other needs like safety and companionship that ultimately promote survival and reproduction. So emotions are a biological mechanism inside our body. It's very natural. We have several different types of emotions because there's different types of neurotransmitters and different pathways that are fairly complex that are activated whenever we are one of our emotions are triggered, because there's a sequence of events like the description I just read says. First, we get information from our senses, from our environment. We notice things, right? And then we process that new information with our memories, what we already know, what we already experienced, past memories, past emotions, information, so on and so on and so on. And then that is fed into our emotional brain, and which is part of the brain, like the processing power that we have in our head, and it may generate an emotion or several emotions, which are biochemical. So there's some kind of programming with a combination of different elements from senses, memory, that will trigger some of these biochemical mechanisms, neurotransmitters, and so on. And then all sorts of chemicals flows into our body. Like in the case of fear, using it as an example, well, if the trigger is fear, then we'll have a lot of adrenaline production. Blood will drain from our head, go into our legs, and we'll have the impulse to flee, to run away, to move, to get out of there. If the emotion felt, or the driver felt, is anger, well, then it's different. And most of the same biochemistry is going to happen, like with the adrenaline, for example, and things like. But the reaction, instead of running away, the reaction will be to confront and displace whatever obstacle that we have perceived as the danger or as the problem. That's why anger sometimes leads to violence, whereas fear, more often than not, leads to just somebody running away or fleeing or trying to avoid whatever. And these are two different survival type reactions that we have integrated as programming into our brain. This is our emotions. That's how they work, and it's part of us. So depending on how we perceive the world, so our senses, and what experiences we have in our brain, different stimuli will engender different types of emotions in different people. So and then they will act according to their emotions and according to their programming. Now, AI, there's a lot of different types of AI. There's a lot of companies say, well, this is artificial intelligence, and even though according to modern standards, they are not really, because they're not learning algorithms. You can have very smart software, very smart algorithms that to today's standards would not be very considered artificial intelligence, because they don't learn. They just operate, input, output, the same kind of things, and they can't really adapt or learn anything. But nowadays we have deep learning AI, which are very, very common even today, and more of them are being rolled out in more visible ways, like self-driving cars next year. We already have the Siri, the Alexas, even the Google search, and when you search shops and there's recommendations. Well, these are, in fact, learning algorithms. These are artificial intelligences that are quite sophisticated in some cases, image recognition and so on. These learn from their environment and become better at their job as they go. Now, those are a little bit different because of the way they are built. They have a different kind of program inside them. And the program inside deep learning AI is way more similar to human emotions than we think. But how they work typically is that they are trained, like there's a basic programming that defines the AI's function, because typically they are narrow AI, they're not human level machine intelligence, not just yet, with a very narrow task, like to recognize images, to drive, to recognize speech and interpret it, and that kind of deal. So inside their programming, it's trained to do a very specific task. So it has a locked-in program that kind of processes information and kind of adapts. It's attached to a memory that is also evolving and changing, because you constantly add more data to it, and that's how it kind of learns. There's more information, it kind of does certain things and adds information to its memory. It creates experiences just like a humans would, and then the next time they do something, then there's more information in their memory to base off of to take the next decision, and so on and so on. So learning, right? And they also have a certain number of senses to perceive the world in some way. Cameras, microphones, radars, barometric pressure meters, and whatever you want to attach that is necessary as input to the AI senses so that it functions and does its jobs properly. So it does have senses, it has a memory, and it does gather more memory and learns just like a human would. Now, its programming that I mentioned earlier, how it works is that it's attempting to do a certain job or a certain task, and how it functions in reality is that, well, it senses. It looks into its memories, like, okay, what did I do before? What is similarities to past experiences, and so on and so on. And then that passes through the program and generates some kind of response or action. Depending on the AI, it can be different things, right? Really, it could be anything. But this is all in software. But that driving program is the AI's emotional center, because that's what it is for us. It's the program that processes that information and drives us to take action, to run away when we're afraid, to defeat some kind of obstacle when we're angry, when we feel discomfort related to some food, or like we smell something that may be bad, then there's an emotion of disgust, which make us kind of like we don't want to taste this, and we kind of like feel disgusted, right? Well, that is the emotion, but those are our survival type emotions. Well, the AI has not those specific emotions, but it has its own drivers, its own types of emotions that makes it run a certain way. Like, let's take the example of the self-driving car, since they're going to be very, very visible next year and the years after. They have emotions because they are deep learning. They have the sensors, they have the memory, and all that stuff. Their program they're not programmed for anger, fear, or anything like that. Not in the way that we are. Our emotions are for our own survival in our very specific cases to refuse food and to flee danger and so on. The car program is designed to bring you from A to B efficiently and safely, both for you and for others. So it's programmed, its emotions, instead of an emotion of fear like we'd have, it would be an emotion of drive safely, if you will, if you want to put a name to it. And how it actually works is it's when it gets input and it does something, like it acts something that is considered a win for its purpose of being efficient and safe, then it kind of scores points, if you will, inside the program. It's good. It says, well, this is good. Continue doing that, right? And if it does something that it perceives as, okay, this is counter to my programming, let's not do that anymore. I'll avoid this in the future. It remembers that, it records it, it learns how to do the job better. And it allows this type of AI, this deep learning AI, to adapt to situations that they've never encountered before. And that's why we make deep learning AI. You can't program sequentially every possible situation that we want them to act in a certain way inside the program. We just make them, give them the basic rules and say, hey, this is good, this is bad behavior. Learn how to do these optimally in the field and figure it out. And so that way, when you encounter things that we wouldn't consider you would encounter on the road or off-road, then at least you have some basis and you'll attempt to do what's the right thing according to your programming, right? Now, this type of positive and negative response in the learning process is exactly the same as what we feel when we learn too. As we use our emotions to learn on what is good behavior, what is bad for us. Whenever we feel like we're achieving some kind of emotional success, something that is good for society, for ourselves, we feel joy. And that's a main driver, one of the two main drivers inside humanity. We either are moved or driven by joy towards something, or driven by discomfort to avoid something. And there's a whole slew of emotions that we want to avoid because these are emotions that are uncomfortable. So we are also programmed the same way. We behave in society and we are striving towards joy and avoiding discomfort. And we navigate and we learn what will optimize our chances of joy and minimize our chances of discomfort. Same as a self-driving car or any other deep learning AI. This is attached to how the emotions work inside the AI and how emotions work inside us. The difference is that one is software, the other one is biological. But they're the same type of programming. And in fact, we can argue that the programming inside the human being is not biological to a certain extent. Actually, it is biological, but it's bits and bytes in the DNA, because that's what codes the system itself, the biological elements that make the system work. Inside the AI, if you have a car, well, it has mechanical parts, actuators that make it roll and actually act in the real world in a physical way. And the software that kind of drives all this stuff is, of course, software. It's programming, it's code. But it has like a physical component and a virtual component. And we say it's virtual, but it's also physical. Program exists as bits and bytes. That's electricity. Those are, doors opening and closing. This is memory. It's not mystical. It's not like energy, if you will. It's actual, microchips that are holding that kind of information in memory and running it. So, like I said, like it's not that ephemeral or mystical. Everything is actually ends up being physical, just like the DNA being our own programming to build the mechanisms that actually make our emotions work. Well, that's physical, but also it's programming. It's programmed in there. It's not a mystical thing. It's actually there. It's physically tangible. You can touch it, right? So the parallels between emotional systems for humans or animals and machines are very, very similar. What is different is what the emotions are and what it makes us do, like the emotions themselves. In one case, in us, we don't have any choice. We're built this way. So we have these emotions, and depending on certain individuals, having an emotion and a driver in a certain direction may harm others. And this is undesirable, and that's why the legal system is there. We have rules, and so sometimes we do things that are uncomfortable to follow the law. And some people would like to do things that are comfortable for them, but that would harm others. But hopefully they are restrained because the law is there to say, no, you can't do that. It's going to be a problem for other people. And that guides us as a society. And so we can't program ourselves, so we program different rules to help guide humanity in a certain way, our society in a certain way, behavior. In the case of the AI and AI inside robots, we are the ones that are designing these drivers, these emotional cues, these programs, so that the AI and machine does learn in the right way and gives results that are beneficial for human beings and animals, environment, and so on. So, for example, we would, I hope we never give a robot an AI that has a program similar, that emulates anger, as an example. Because anger is quite destructive for us, we know it. It's useful if you want to protect yourself by removing obstacles. That's what it's for us. Causes some unfortunate situations on occasion, actually often does. But in a strong mechanical robot that learns, having something brutal like anger, something raw like that inside it, means that it will sense some, like similar to react to us if it's emulated exactly. It would sense there's an obstacle, and it would immediately and efficiently try to remove the obstacle by all means necessary, or at least maybe a list of means that is in its programming. And there's no real reason you would build an AI with that kind of programming. You would build one that would probably emulate fear, for example, if something may come to harm to it, just like our fear, like it senses something's going to damage it, to run away. Yeah, sure. See, that's not harmful. You can emulate that. But we don't need to emulate. We can just create brand new software, brand new emotions inside AI that pushes them forward in the right direction. I could give you an example, a fictional example. Let's say you want an AI to clean the city, right? And a deep learning AI. So you don't know where the dirt's going to appear, the junk, but you want it to be motivated to clean, okay? So you give it the emotions of joy whenever it cleans something. It cleans something up in a certain way that is in its list of good ways to clean, for example. So it's driven to do that. And at the same time, you give them emotions that would be negative points. So in terms of the computer, would be uncomfortable for it. So in other words, it would try to avoid those. Whenever it would do something that would cause damage or harm, or it would maybe push some dust on somebody, a private property, be in the way of traffic. You can apply a different list like that. And those rules, those emotional rules, guide the computer into a kind of a point system where it's driven towards the joy, so cleaning as much as possible, efficiently as possible, and avoiding the discomfort, just like a human being would. Okay, let's avoid putting dirt there. And if it does, okay, let's not do that again. Let's act differently. And that allows it to learn how to adapt to all sorts of situations that that can't be programmed ahead of time. And it avoids the discomfort and goes towards joy. And you can imagine these AI at some point being very interactive and personable, maybe having a personality that you can talk to them. And it may, if we program them with a personality, react similar to a human being or a sentient robot you would see on TV, for example. But it has these very specific cleaning emotions or drivers inside it, programmed inside it. So if you have a discussion with it, maybe it's going to continue cleaning all the time because that's where it's going to feel the joy, but it still may reply to you and say have a good day and things like that. Why not? But instead of a human would not behave this way, it would just continue cleaning all the time and kind of say, hey, listen, I'd like to chat, but I need to clean these things. Because this is my thing, right? This is what I enjoy doing. So it does that while avoiding conflicts and everything that it feels uncomfortable with. Now, remember, these robots don't technically feel anything. They are just driven by software. Now, the question is, like, we feel something, but that's because we live within that programming. The feeling that we feel is what drives us from towards one thing or another. That's the actual impulse that make us do something in a certain direction. And this is biochemical. We describe it as a feeling. But similarly, the AI that has those paradigms, these emotions of discomfort and joy that navigates that, in a way would be feeling as well. And since you can't be inside the robot and see if it feels the same as you, the result is basically the same. They're trying to avoid things that they perceive as uncomfortable or bad, and they're driving towards things that they want to do. We use words like joy and feeling and uncomfortable because that's the way we kind of constructed the language. But in reality, what we're doing is we're in the case of joy, is like, what we could say very simply is like, I'm driven towards that. I want to do more of this. And when it comes for discomfort, it's like, I want to avoid this. It's not good. I don't like that, right? We're not that different. So imagine in a future world where we have way more advanced AI that are learning, that are sophisticated. Some of them are interpersonal, others basically ignore humanity and animals, they just do their job. We're just filling the world with non-sentient artificial intelligences that do lots of things, but they are motivated by programmed emotions, living among us as in partnership, basically, because we all have emotions, we all have things we want to do and want to avoid. They're doing things, programmed to do things that we want to avoid, but they will enjoy because they're programmed to enjoy it. And some of these artificial intelligences will be sophisticated enough and perhaps personable enough or advanced enough to even be called sentient, even though the emotions are not the same as human emotions, which would be ultimately undesirable. We don't want to create necessarily any other human being mechanically. We want to create tools that allow us to be more human, to be free, to do things that we want to do, that we are motivated and feel strongly about. But some of those other AI may yet be classified as sentient in their own way, despite the fact that they don't feel the same emotions we do. It's something to consider. It's like basically a bunch of partnerships of intelligences that coexist on the planet, and all of them have things that they want to do and things they dislike to do, living in harmony. And the ones that we build, we make them so that they enjoy doing things that we don't want. And everybody can be happy, again, air quotes, because emotions is a perception thing, doing what they prefer doing, and humanity can be free to essentially to do what they want to do all the time, right? And that's something that we can build, and that's something we can engineer, and we can engineer a paradise. We're moving towards this capability very quickly. You know, whether or not we choose to build a world this way, step by step, following regulations, being careful, because we're still exploring a lot. I mean, that's very exciting to me. So let's move towards a paradise. Thanks for watching, guys. Thumbs up, share, do anything you want with this information. Next week, a couple of weeks from now, I will share another video and another article The article that I wrote about this particular topic is down below. You can check it out in the description. Enjoy. Have a good weekend. Have a good week. And think about this. Bye-bye.